Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Florida Relocation Guide YouTube channel. Once again, my name is Adam Hancock, and today is part 2 of my riff series on the 2023 Sarasota, Florida housing market. Today we are discussing the liberation of Venice, Florida. What is the deal with Parrish, Florida? Why should you even care? The emergence of inventory homes and quick move-ins, and what happens if you buy the right house on the wrong lot in a new construction neighborhood. Really hope you enjoy, and let's hop in. Okay, first up, I'd like to talk about something I'm calling Welland Park and Venice, Florida's liberation. And I was going to say emancipation, but it sounded in my head way too aggressive for this context. But I mean liberation or separation from being Sarasota Junior. Historically, Venice was an offshoot of Sarasota, and still is in most ways, I think, how people think about it. You know, it's not Siesta Key, but it's cool because Venice Beach is calmer, more affordable. You know, it's okay that it's 45 minutes south of downtown Sarasota because when we need to, we can go in and do stuff. We can go in and do cosmopolitan stuff that isn't here, right? You know, it's not as hectic. It's a good place for retirement, get away from people. That is the historic context of Venice that they're still trying to overcome. But now with the emergence, so when you're relocating to Southwest Florida, you're looking at Sarasota Greater, and Venice is a part of the conversation. But now with the emergence of Welland Park, you know, 9 to 11 brand new construction communities. You have a Braves stadium right there. You have its own downtown. All of this sits below downtown Venice Island. So it basically borders Northport, South Venice, and Englewood. I've heard rumblings of amazing stuff going to be built out there in the future. You have a downtown that has condos and the beaches like what makes Sarasota great. You have east of all of this with land like a Northport or an East Venice that they can build more affordable options of new construction and suburban housing, right? You have all the markings. But what I do think is that people are no longer going to feel like they chose Venice because of some criteria and that they always have Sarasota as an anchor. I do feel like when you're looking at moving to Southwest Florida, Venice will be on its own outright a choice. No need, if Sarasota wasn't there, Venice would still excel. It's got Gulf waters. It has 3 beaches. It is an hour and a half to 2 major airports. It's less than 2 hours to Naples. You have Sanibel, Captiva, Minnesota, all of those, Boca, all of those right below it. So I would keep an eye on this, but that's what I would say as far as my view on what Venice will be in the future, given enough time. Okay, next up for this video, I want to talk about the topic of what is the deal with Parrish, Florida. Maybe on your radar, maybe not. You may have come across it because the builders you like went there. The pricing seems more affordable than closer to town versions of Lakewood Ranch. You may be thinking, like, is it like Wesley Chapel is to Tampa Bay or Brandon is to Tampa Bay, or all these conversations. And so I wanted to talk that through a little bit. So let me give you a quick historical context of Lakewood Ranch to lay the land for this conversation of where it's the same and different. You know, Lakewood Ranch is northeast of all the stuff people deem important about Sarasota, Florida by 11 miles and greater. It is fully master planned, 30 plus communities, all newer than 1994. The first home was built in 1995, and it has multiple town centers and places to gather. It has multiple schools. It is now across Sarasota and Manatee County. And you know, the benefit of the master plan and how intentional it was the ownership group. So like from my understanding, one family owned all the land. So the way it was released, the aesthetic of the community, it's very, very controlled. And but it was viewed as an offshoot suburb that if you went that far, you got a little bit more affordability. They had land to build new. It was historically viewed as far from what Sarasota is, like many suburbs are. So that's the lay of land of Lakewood Ranch. Well, what Parrish is Parrish is northeast mostly, and kind of just north of Lakewood Ranch. So if you got your head around Lakewood, then Parrish is a further version. So if you go farther, you should you still have the land, right? Still build new. Should be cheaper because technically you get farther from the Sarasota conversation because it's in Manatee County, it's not Tampa Bay. You sneakily get a little closer to Tampa Bay, but no one's really choosing it as that the primary concern. It was just like if you got your head around Lakewood, and maybe you like a little bit more of the country, but most people go there for cost. So where it stands now, a couple things. One, it's a bedroom community. You know, Parrish, the hard part when you drive through Lakewood, it looks like Pleasantville. It looks like it does online, The Truman Show. So it's easy to get your head around. There's maps, and there's, you know, the Lakewood Ranch Center does like the full-time jobs of just ambassadorship to do this, to teach people how to get their head around it. Parrish is somewhere that very much looks country. and it very much looks like new construction is mixed in it. And you don't know where you are, you don't have context of the town. It feels further than it actually is. You know, a lot of Lakewood Ranch is the same distance to the coast as Parrish is, because Parrish goes like this, not straight northeast. It goes north and starts to hug west. And so people don't know how to look at it like that, but it's a bedroom community. Now, this is where it gets interesting with the conversation of like what it's not Lakewood, right? So one, Lakewood Ranch was built before it. And with the Fort Hammer Bridge, you can go right over there to Parrish. So having Lakewood in front of it gives you a really, really nice path to get a value proposition of what Parrish is going to have the chance to be like. It was the same things. It's northeast of what everybody deems important. There's land to build new. You know, if given enough time of 20, 30 years, you could do all of this kind of thing. You could make it not a bedroom community. You can build downtowns and commercial infrastructure. That, you would say, is coming. And you could hedge your bets on investment that this one's close by it. So having a Lakewood gives me some grace when I do Parrish. Where Wesley Chapel in Tampa Bay doesn't really have that benefit. There wasn't a Wesley Chapel before Wesley Chapel. There was Microcosms, Fishhawk, West Chase. Wesley Chapel is the first player in that game to try to do something cool with the land of being north of town. Now, where they're different, I think the one family owning most of the land is very, very important in this conversation. Because I've had many like friendly arguments at entertainment establishments with people about how I thought Northport's underrated. Just what Northport is to Sarasota. It's east of town, big piece of land, blah, blah, blah. I was like, they could make that like Lakewood is if they wanted to. Now the big difference is not one family controls all the ownership. So if you have to piece together a bunch of new construction developments without everybody in the game playing the same game and going towards the same cause, I don't know if it will have the possibility to totally look the same. Because if someone owns a piece of land, like a bunch of acreage there, they would have to sell it to these folks. So right now, I think Parrish and Wesley Chapel are more similar in that realm. Is you have Canoe Creek out there, and you have all the stuff Neil's doing, and you have a lot of different new construction builders out there. But as long as they are not talking to each other with some overarching development company planning for all of them to be there at once, it might look discombobulated if you don't like that for a while until they build it out. But I do think eventually it's going to have a ton of legs. I think if you look at it appropriately, you should save money. That should be number one. But you can lean into people just trying to be in Lakewood Ranch for whether that's vanity metrics or it could be the schools or whatever it may be, but people trying to be in Lakewood Ranch. If you get up above State Road 70, even below State Road 64, above State Road 70, those communities, the Park East, Star Farms, Sweetwater, they are not that much farther from stuff than Parrish is. It's something to really consider and really run the numbers because all of Lakewood Ranch isn't the same. But that's what I would say as far as how I would view Parrish right now in 2023. All right, third up for this video, I wanted to talk about inventory homes and quick move-ins. In Sarasota, Florida, we haven't, even I hesitated when I said it, because we haven't seen a lot of that. Our demand's so strong, you're not seeing 10 homes that are gonna be ready in the next 6 months. You're not seeing any of that, because when it did exist, they were eaten up immediately. You go to parts of Dallas, Texas, for example, one builder has 25 homes ready by June, and you can even take your time while choosing amongst them, but our demand hasn't allowed for that. But now with the continued pricing fragility, the volatility of margin for builders, like the more they allow, even with a controlled list, the more they allow you to pick is the lack of control of, they don't know what you're gonna pick. So they can't necessarily hedge bets of like getting on top of knowing exactly their cost. So all that to say, in the last month or two, we've seen a lot more pre-designed inventory homes. And it's something I wouldn't necessarily just discount, because trust me, I'm very empathetic that I'm gonna buy a home for $1 million or $700,000, like I wanna design it. I'm very empathetic to that. But I think there is a couple things when you go to, in a neighborhood that you love, of like trying to find that out. Because one, I think on this whole conversation, I think you should be aware that I am seeing some level of push of inventory homes. So any neighborhood you're targeting pretty hard, whether you're with our staff or not, be cognizant of that and maybe try to find that out. Two, a really nice thing about even designing your own home is to see one that the neighborhood did and be aware of the value different. Are you gonna save money by designing your own home and waiting for the build time? Or what is the comparison there and why did they do what they did? It might give you more education on how to think about the value of the neighborhood. And three, with that build time conversation, there's probably something to say in a world of right now. If you would have bought 6 months ago, I don't know what your value of your home is versus what they're selling it right now. There's something to say for a finality, right? Like right now you can make a judgment on like buying a resale home. Is it worth it? And am I going to lose out in 6 months? Because you can look at what they're building them for versus the spec, and you know what it's going to cost because you're going to be in that house in 3 months, 6 months, whatever it may be, where building a house might take 18 months, and your house could be worth less by the time they finish it. So it's something it's not necessarily right for everybody. It's not right for a lot of people. It's not something I would completely discount just because now it is more abundant and resale inventory is picking up. You actually have more choices to gain context of, is this a good decision or not? Okay, the last one for the part 2 video I want to touch on is the idea of right house and wrong lot. I'm just going to kind of riff on some sensitive topics that have come across our desk lately and just kind of how I think through them, see if that helps at all. So what we have here, basically, you have the idea of cell towers, power lines, lakes and water bodies that are not the Gulf of Mexico costing at a premium. And the orientation of your rear exposure for your house, south, southwest, what do you value, southeast? So the way I think about all of this kind of stuff is it's all kind of this hovering of what you care about, and can you lean into something that a lot of other people care about that you don't really care about? And is it aesthetics? Is it a health risk? Is the orientation of your house just you can see the sunset a little bit more, or is it the sun's going to beat into the side of your windows all the time? Or what are these main items, right? Some are really valued and some I don't think matter as much. But first off the bat, like every single neighborhood built out has some lots that are less attractive to people. Houses that butt against each other, the view of those unaesthetically pleasing items. Well, the thing about that is there's enough people that move to Southwest Florida every year, they're going to all sell. And what is your perspective? If you're from the dead-on city and all you see is infrastructure and buildings and power lines, anything Lakewood Ranch is going to feel spread out and refreshing and country to you. So you might not even, unless you brought it up, you might not even consider the power lines a thing. You might you're just like I'm closer to town, you know, at the Isles than I am Esplanade Azarios or Windward. So it makes sense that the power lines were already there, and if you want to move far enough in the country, you can get everything built underground, but you value the location of this particular house more than that. But knowing that, then everyone that deems that as an absolute deal breaker, which is a ton of people that are waiting for phase 2 or phase 3, how much equity could you potentially build up being in that house while they're waiting? So that would be a way to lean into it and understand that like not everyone that views that the same, but the people that view it as a deal breaker view it as the ultimate deal breaker. It wouldn't even move. And that's how strongly people feel about it, where you got the health concerns, I guess, with the cell tower, so that's your personal decision, but the power lines aesthetically, it's very different. So the other thing is the lake value is similar, right? Like, so, you know, Kingfisher Lake in Waterside, there's huge bodies of water, right? There's some potential value there, but at $500,000 for just the lake, how much is that functional for you? And then also, because of the bleed over of people moving to Florida and wanting a water view, you have like rain collection, large retention ponds in neighborhoods that are charging $300,000 for the land, where arguably it could be less private in some neighborhoods because of the way the rears of the houses face, versus if you just backed into conservation or something like that. But if you can see on the price sheets how the builder views as a premium, because they're just taking the minds of the people a lot of times. They're taking the demand and they're understanding value from the demand, but arguably a house in the middle of a street on conservation could be interesting and save you a ton of money. And then same with the orientation of the house, where people like in Esplanade Azario are full on waiting for these certain lots in this certain phase, but are the homes available now? Are they at a discount versus the people waiting? Also, like, you know, at Waterside, a lot of the people like the dead south rear exposures and that kind of thing, where arguably the longer lake views in person were straight west and that kind of thing. So I would just look at the idea of what's important to you, consider all the things and all the negativity that surrounds people that are very set on certain ideas. A lot of the Florida neighborhoods, the reason that they're really important in other states with different weather and different timing and all that kind of thing, I don't think matter near as much as people blow them out to be. So maybe you can get an advantage by leaning into the opposite direction potentially, but I would at least consider it. All right, my friends, that is a wrap for this video. I really hope you enjoyed the format. If you did, please consider subscribing and liking if you haven't already done so. Secondly, if my team can assist you at all, any real estate needs, buying, selling, relocating, anything in between, please consider reaching out. We'll put all our contact information here. Anything on this list, any more information, even if you're far out in your search and you'd like help navigating that, I think we have the best in the business and the smartest in the business at doing that particular thing. And finally, the sunshinestateco.com, doing some reformatting and shuffling there, but my website